Good morning. I am out metal detecting. I'm actually at Digstock, which is a organized hunt down in North Carolina. And there's something here that I found in this gigantic woods. It's like 500 acres of woods. A structure of sorts that I want to share with you guys, because you guys will find these when you're out in areas that have been occupied for, you know, from the 1700s to the early 1800s. You probably won't know what they are when you see them. You run a metal detector over it, no signals. You're like, that's weird. Kind of what, I thought when I first hit it, until it dawned on me what I was looking at, because we have these things at home. Now I dug a little hole in the middle of it because I'm going to show you some layers of soil and how you can tell what this thing is. All right, anyone know what this big circle is? It's actually on a mound in a pine forest. It's actually very wet. It's a wet pine forest. That might be why it's mounded up. Where I live, Shenandoah Valley, you find these big round circles in the woods, not necessarily in a mound, but they'll be flat. Thought it's going to be a big flat circle in the woods, look like a spaceship landed on it. What is it? I'm going to tell you. What you are looking at here is a mound. You can see there's a trench dug all the way around it, and it came through here too, back behind me. You see the outlines of the trench. It's not perfectly round looking because this is where they had a logging road cut right through the middle of it, so it's kind of all cattywampus in here. But what we're looking at here is a area where back in the 1700s, maybe early 1800s, they were making charcoal. Now, why is charcoal important? I mean, really, what is it? Well, you're in luck, because I'm going to tell you. All right, charcoal is basically just trees that you would burn slowly. And when I say burn, I don't really mean like not with a fire. There's no flame when you're making charcoal, but you heat it up and it forces out some of the organic compounds and the moisture, and it makes the wood shrink up, dry out. It gets very light, but it will still burn like crazy if you apply heat to it. They would clear an area of this wood, so woods like this, and it might be 5 acres, could be 10 acres, and they'd pile the wood here in a giant pyramid. It could be 15 feet high, all stacked up, like lengths of logs and stuff. And they'd start a fire in the center of it and start, getting it to burn. But once it got going, they would get the flames out, because you can't have any flames when this is going on, because it ruins it. It just turns it to ash. And they get a huge mound pyramid of dirt here. They'd cover it with dirt, wood. They'd cover it with dirt all the way around it. So it'd be just like a big old ant mound here. And they would set a fire in the middle of it. It would start burning, and then they would sit here and tend it, watch it, make sure the process kept going, and make sure that the soil didn't move and it catch on fire, because if there were flames showing, game over. Okay, so they would have to tend these things for 4, 5, 6 days, maybe a week. They'd have guys out here 24/7. Someone sitting here watching it the entire time, because as the wood would be cooking, it's shrinking up a little bit, so the dirt's collapsing and stuff. So you have to keep patching it so the air couldn't get in there. You only want a little tiny bit of air in there. And these things, when you got them going, they smoked like crazy. I actually made some charcoal at home one time in a 55-gallon drum, just to see how, what the process was like. And it was huge billows of smoke for days coming out of that thing. All right, so let's get back to what we're looking at. This is a raised platform in this woods. Where I live in the Shenandoah Valley, you find them in the woods, and they're just flat areas, always round, because they would make these big pyramids. And if you look along here, you can see there's a trench, and the reason there's a trench is so that they can use the dirt to cover up the giant mound of wood that they had here, the pyramid of wood. And every once in a while, it looks like it has a little place you could walk. And I suspect, although I don't know for sure, that's probably so that the guys could walk in and out of here. And you see there's another one there, so that they could tend the fire and make sure, keep putting dirt up on it, like I was telling you a few minutes ago. When it's done, they have charcoal, which is, semi-burned wood, very light, very easy to transport, and it burns really well and really hot, especially if you put like air on it, like a bellows. They had bellows and stuff. So a blacksmith could take this charcoal, bags and bags of charcoal, weigh hardly nothing, and make fires for forging at their home, at the farm, or anywhere. And it's a good easy product to use. You could use wood, but wood doesn't really burn quite as good, and you have to put a lot of air on it, and if it's not really dry, it's just a mess. You don't get as much heat, because remember, when you're heating wood, this goes for at your home too, like if you have a wood fire or a stove. If you have wood that's green or that's wet, when you're burning it in your stove, the heat of the fire has to burn off the moisture before it starts to get really hot. Okay, so if you have wet wood and you burn it in your stove, a lot of your heat, potential heat, is going up the chimney as steam. Okay, so that's why it's important to use really dry wood. It gets so much hotter than wet wood. All right, so this thing's burned down. They got a giant thing of charcoal here, really easy to transport. They put in, carry a bag of it as big as a moose on your shoulders, no problem, and you sell it to foundries that are melting steel. You sell it to anyone that wants a nice hot fire without a lot of smoke or a lot of trouble. Use it at your house. This is pre-coal days. Because when we started using coal, when we found coal here in the States, and started really understanding, the uses of coal, early 1800s, by mid 1800s, that's all we used. Charcoal fell out of favor. So when you see these, they're early, usually 1700s, very early 1800s. All right, guess what? I'm going to tell you something. Coal is the exact same way. You can dig coal out of the ground, and you burn it at a temperature that doesn't cause flames to turn it into ash, and the coal will release compounds and things that are in it that don't burn well into the atmosphere. Again, probably huge amounts of smoke, I don't know, and you end up with a product that's very lightweight, and they call it coke, like Coca-Cola. Coke. So coke is to coal as charcoal is to wood. The exact same idea. So how do you know this is a burn pit or a burn mound for a charcoal maker in the 1700s that had a crew of guys out here, probably with a bunch of kids? These were probably actually slaves here because we're in the South. So a plantation around here would have probably 5 or 6 of their slaves out here with one master slave that knew the process really well, and they would tend this for a week, 24/7. This is how you can tell. First thing you will notice is that there is no iron, or very little. I went over metal detector, nothing. Okay, but if you dig down into the ground, you'll start to see charcoal. Okay, so you look in here, you can see there's layers of charcoal and dirt, and that's the bottom ground right there. That actually, the ground is kind of reddish, so it was probably heated up some. But this is just all the charcoal and wood that didn't burn, that they didn't haul out of here for whatever reason. See right there. And one other interesting little amazing fact, if you would, the people that made charcoal had a name, and they were called colliers. Colliers, I think. And I actually grew up with a kid in high school. His last name was Collier. And as it turns out, that's the origin, probably, of that last name. His ancestors, the ancestry of that name, and he was probably from people that made charcoal, colliers. And another interesting fact for you guys that do a lot of research and like history is you'll see on some of the older maps, and I didn't understand this until like 15-20 years ago, like there's a place in Virginia, it's called the coaling area. Okay, now the place where this is in Virginia, there's no coal. It's limestone, Shenandoah Valley, and it's like they call it the coals or the coaling, and it's like, there's no coal there. What the heck are they talking about? As it turns out, that was another old term kind of for charcoal. They called it coaling back before we really started using the kind of coal that you find in the ground, like the bituminous or anthracite types of coal. One's soft, one's hard, one burns a lot better than the other, I think. I think they use the hard stuff for like making steel and stuff with it. You need really good, strong, like wood fires.
She'll shake the coins from your pocket, take your gold chain and your locket. Mother Earth has no sympathy. She'll take the ring from your hand and bury it in the sand and keep it for eternity. Mother Earth, she's got her secrets she's promised to keep, hidden in her dirt or deep in her creek. Mother Earth, she ain't saying exactly what she's saving, where it is or what it might be. Mother Earth, you are my lady, my big round baby. I'll rock you until I go to sleep. She don't care if you're dying or if you're living or somewhere in